As Gnome says, the final whistle has blown at St Mary's. It has finished. Southampton 0, West Ham United 0. Another point on the road for West Ham. Not the most entertaining of games, but West Ham much better in the second half than they were in the first. And if anyone looked more likely to grab a winner in the second half, it was West Ham. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way. The best chance of the half, indeed the best chance of the match, falling to substitute Ben Rama with just 6 minutes of normal time remaining. Bowen putting the ball into the mix and Ben Rama profiting from a bit of slack defending. But full credit to Southampton goalkeeper Alex McCarthy pulling off a stunning save from point blank range to keep his side in the game and earn a point for Southampton when West Ham looked like they might just steal it at the end. Credit, I think, is going to be coming from the team for David Moyes and his positive second half substitutions in which he brought on Ben Rama and Bowen, the one we missed. We didn't even see that happen, but it did happen.
I think the team
and then, of course,
missed it, didn't they? Amazon missed it. There was no caption or anything like that. First, we knew the ball was out by. Bowen, where did he come from?
Yeah, where did he come from? He was on the bench a minute ago. We didn't even see him warming up. One player we did see warming up for quite some time was Michail Antonio, who came on to play the last 13 minutes as a replacement for Sebastian Haller. Stretches hamstrings, fortunately, no problems, and he looked at quite a handful as it transpired, but wasn't enough to secure a win for West Ham. A word, of course, we'll be talking about man of the match as well. If you're on the YouTube chat, do let us know who you felt was man of the match, whether you agree with Pinky and whether you agree with Amazon. Was it the new man, Dawson, coming in, doing a solid job at the back, or did someone else take your eye? Let's go to the team and grab an instant assessment of what we've seen over the course of the last 90 minutes. We'll start tonight with Bristol Hammer, Breeze Southampton 0, West Ham United 0. Another point for the Hammers on the road.
Yeah, and I think all things given, with the side that we were, me especially at the beginning, thought we were going to lose that by quite heavily. I think taking a point is not a bad result. I'm a little disappointed at the end, actually, and that's kind of strange given where we were in the first half. I think the difference was made at halftime. We pushed up on Walcott. We stopped allowing him to have that space to be able to dictate the ball. Then we kind of moved to a 4-3-3, created some space in between the attackers in the midfield. And look, Southampton didn't know quite how to cope with us. They'd obviously set up for us the way that we were playing in the first half. They didn't quite know what to do in the second half. And I think in the end, we were unlucky not to take it. Again, I think it was a really good point. I think Fornals worked his socks off. Dawson played well. I'm just disappointed we don't set up to start games more positively. And I think, to be honest with you, if there's any criticism of Moyes, that's my one of his. It's a dangerous game to play when you sit there thinking, I'll go in at halftime 0-0, bring some players on at halftime and change the game around, because you lose a couple of goals at halftime and your options are taken away from you. So I'd like to see us be a bit more positive. I understand why he's gone that way and why he's gone for the point in the end, but it's a bit disappointing as a fan and certainly as a West Ham fan, you expect us to be a bit more up for it from the first half. But overall, decent point. I can't see us getting anything from Everton, but I think this at least set us on our way to be a bit more confident. A clean sheet's always good as well.
Yeah, always a bonus away from home. Of the three second half substitutes, Breeze, who impressed you most out of Ben Rama, Bowen? We didn't really see a lot of him, and Antonio.
Antonio, I was a little worried when he came on, because if I was Southampton, the first thing I'd be doing is put my boot through him and saying, welcome back to the game. Because, he was our third sub. We've got no more behind him and seeing if he is a little bit fragile. But I think he made the difference. He reads the game so well. He knows when to make his runs. And Pinky was right. And I think a little bit of it was to do with the shape change. Haller was a little bit isolated up front. But when he comes on, he just seems to lift the team. The team seems to build that confidence around him. You could see the players almost, their shoulders came up. It was a bit of a mistake. Well, we can put the ball to Antonio. We know we can run off him. You don't normally see that with Haller. So I think he made the difference for me. I'm still not convinced by Ben Ram. I'm really not convinced by him. Bowen's a great player. And again, some good players to bring on.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you. Gnome, a point away from home, never something to be sneezed at, regardless of the opposition. But did David Moyes start this one a little bit too defensively?
I think it was more a case that first 15 minutes, we weren't allowed to be more attacking. Those first 15 minutes or so, they came at us with a vengeance. Now it did settle down, and we were sort of compact. And apart from the fact that Walcott was getting a little bit too much space, which was dealt with in the second half, but I don't think he set up to play that way. I just think that they kept us pinned in for 15 minutes before things settled down. They weren't finding a way through. They lacked creativity and guile, and at that point, you end up, when you've had the ball for 10, 15 passes, nothing's happening ahead of you. There's your patience runs out, and you'll end up with somebody launching it forward. We pick it off. As I was saying, excuse me, we weren't getting weren't holding on to the ball that well, and that would have made a difference. Second half, I thought we were the better team for most of that. When you look at it, saves made by goalkeepers, really. Two of note. That one that swerved all over the place, that Fabianski got behind and saved well, and that point blank save from McCarthy, which was superb. But what you had to, excuse me, what you had there were two teams pretty much cancelling each other out. And I'm happy with the point, because it was one that I know Southampton over the last few games haven't played that well, but when I saw Ings was back, and we're just looking at the match stats, we actually had more shots than them, and we had the same amount on target. So it's all very well having possession, but if you're looking up in possession, you've got nobody to pass it to other than the guys 10 yards to your right. There you go. Do you want to ditch me now, because we've got Declan Rice on the box?
Okay, we'll come back in a minute. Thank you. No, Rio, Southampton 0, West Ham United 0. A better point perhaps than the two at home against Palace and Brighton. But for you, a good point, or 2 points drop possibly?
I mean, I'd say it's a good point away from home. They're a team that are above us in the league. If they were won tonight, they'd have gone top 4, I believe. But they look flat. They look equally as flat, if not flatter, than we did, which is a bit of a surprise. My biggest issue with tonight's performance is we had a more attacking lineup than we did on Monday. It should have been the other way around for me. And tonight, we didn't allow our forward attacking players to flourish. It took 75 minutes for Soucek and Declan Rice to stamp their authority in the game, win balls in midfield, feed our attacking midfielders. And when they did, Pablo Fornals and Saïd Benrahma looked a distinct threat. We could have won the game at the end there. But as Gnome said, I think the official stat said we had 3 shots on target. Now, I think one was that stretch Seb Haller chance in the first half, which can't really count. The other, I think, was Dawson's. I think is it the name was a skull shot or something? When you try and kick the opposition's head into the back of the net, and that chance on Benrahma at the end. We really didn't test the keeper until that chance at the end when Benrahma got through. Now, we had the wealth of attacking talent out there, and we didn't let them flourish until the last 15 minutes when they noticeably tired and they were absolutely struggling. A point away from home, a good side, is always a positive, but it could have been more, and it's a little bit disappointing for me there.
Yeah, isn't that perhaps the story of the last couple of weeks, really? Palace, 2 points dropped. Brighton had to come from behind twice. It's the story of our recent form, that isn't it? That it could have been much better.
Yeah, most definitely. And you got to take in consideration the depth of our squad, the amount of games we're playing in such a short period of time. You can't be too disappointed with tonight. But we're going to go back for the same old kind of arguments. If we had more investment, if we had more players at our disposal, I'd
Yeah.
even say if we had more of our under-23 squad at our disposal, because they've all been missing because of COVID reasons. Most of them not available for selection whatsoever. Maybe a couple of them on the bench could have freshened things up, made things a bit more interesting. I know Moyes isn't the most proactive in terms of giving youth a chance.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of strange decisions today in terms of selection, but one of them,
Like
one
what?
of his gambles paid off in Craig Dawson, who's never been the most aesthetically pleasing player. He's never going to win plaudits for the beautiful game, is he? But apart from one error in the first half, which thankfully got ruled out for offside, I thought he coped quite admirably. For a player who hasn't played professional football for, was it 4 or 5 months? He did all right. Yeah.
Man of the match for you, Rio, tonight, Dawson?
I think he's the only one who really stood out, to be honest. Again, it's because of the paucity of game time he's had that he's probably stood out. And then it was a pretty, until the last 15 minutes when we really stepped up, it was an incredibly poor game, wasn't it? And no one else out of our starting 11 really shone. You can't give it to any of the subs. So Dawson for almost a triumph over adversity, because as soon as he was announced, the match Fred went through the roof, criticising his selection, bar 1 or 2 posters. Everyone thought it was an absolute mistake and a half, because he's not a popular person, is he? He was brought in as an emergency loan. He wasn't expected to play a part at all. He's come in. He's been part of a team that's got away to potentially almost a top 4 side if they won tonight, earned a clean sheet. So, yeah, Craig Dawson, well done, mate.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Pinky, we're down to 4 now. It looks like we've lost Briz and Dio had to chip off. Yeah, Pinky, a 0-0 and a point, a decent point. Rio says a decent point on the road, perhaps, but we had opportunities, not too many, but obviously the chance that we've just seen rerun on the TV for those of us that still got it on, that chance for Ben Rama when he really should have scored. And then, of course, a couple more there. The Souček, the header, good opportunity. One you'd expect him to perhaps do better from, the Rice free kick. And I might, but, did we perhaps perform better at the other end tonight in the sense that Southampton have scored a fair few goals this season, but I felt they would look completely subdued tonight. And I know it's Christmas and, you get some odd results and teams can often look like that. But would you agree that our defensive unit were rock solid? I mean, you've obviously cited Dawson, but, it's not just Dawson. Fredericks has come in, first game of the season tonight. Since he was dropped, we signed Kufal and we haven't seen hair nor hide of him since then. Ogbono, another good job. Cresswell, a couple of really outstanding moments from Cresswell. That hook back when the ball was going over his head, similar to the was it Rice or Fornell? Sorry, Fornell produced a similar thing. But defensively, I think we look very solid tonight. And to restrict Southampton to 9 shots and 3 on target is credit to them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and to the players in front of them. Danny Ings, not a single touch in our box tonight. So there's your stat for you. There's your headline.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they did well. I was surprised that Moyes gave Fredericks the nod. I thought he may have rewarded Johnson with the starting point tonight at right back.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably 2 things going on there. Maybe the manager trying to put a player in the shop window, and maybe taking a bit of pressure off a youngster. So fair enough, he's gone for Fredericks. Ogbono does what Ogbono does. He's been a very reliable player for us for a year and a half or so now. But very interestingly, in the second half, it was Dawson who was actually leading the back line. He was controlling the defensive effort and taking command and saying, look, you do this, you do that. Which I thought was quite interesting for a player that's an on-loan player from another club in his first game of the season. So fine for him. My bigger concern with tonight, the damage was done in the home fixture against Brighton and Hove Albion, because all the managers look at runs of games and they all say from that group of games. These are the points we want to pick up and what have you. So if you look at the 2 games overall, 2 points from 6 isn't enough. We needed 4 points from those 6 if we make the assumption that we're not going to get very much at all against Everton. We now have put ourselves in a position with just getting the 2 draws. We probably need a point against Everton as a minimum, I'd suggest, to say it's been a reasonable period. But the problems go so much deeper. We've praised Craig Dawson tonight. Well, let's just explore that a bit more. Issa Diop, who we've paid in excess of £20 million for, can't get a game. Seb Haller, who we've paid in excess of £40 million for, as soon as he's gone off and we brought Antonio on, we look a completely different side all of a sudden. We've still got Felipe Anderson playing abroad somewhere. He cost us another absolute chunk of change. And, a player that's come on tonight, said Benrahma, I'm sorry, but when you're 3 or 4 yards out, given that opportunity, you score. You put the ball in the net, because that's your job, son. That's why you've come on for that. And we've committed to paying over £20 million for him. So we are racking up huge expenditure on players that are not delivering week in, week out. Yet David Moyes is the manager. He signed Bowen, who's generally done well for us. He signed Kufal, who's generally done well for us. And there's a pattern emerging here whereby we've got the Pellegrini cast-offs and the Sullivan picks aren't doing it for us. And yet the manager's already been told there's no money to spend in January. So whatever Moyes is doing on the pitch, game to game, a lot of the good work is getting undone because of what's going on above him or what he inherited.
Yeah.
And here we are with 20 games from the end of the season. We don't know who's going to be manager. The players don't know who their boss is going to be next season. So if you're a player now looking at this, you're thinking, well, is Moyes going to be my boss? At what point are the players going to stop running for this manager on the basis of they'll come to the conclusion that he won't be their boss next season? Because that moment's coming, probably mid-March, if we assume that Sullivan and Moyes can't reach an agreement on a deal. And I don't think it's about what Moyes gets paid. I don't think it'll be about Moyes' contract length. This will be, what are the funds available to strengthen the squad? And this is the bit that Mr. Sullivan won't either want to give to Mr. Moyes or isn't in a position to give to Mr. Moyes. And my biggest fear, what I'm looking at the minute, is a manager who is punching above his weight, and he's going to end up going again at the end of the year, and we'll still be stuck with Seb Haller, we'll still be stuck with Benrahma, we'll be stuck with Felipe Anderson, and we'll have crucial positions that we need to fill. And it's not looking so rosy for us. So for me, the result tonight, a point from away from home, is never bad. But as a run of fixtures, this and Brighton were 2 points short of where we need to be. But the bigger picture is the bigger problem. That's where I'd put it. And we've lost Graham. I think I've bored him to death there somehow. But can anyone else hear me or anything? Or
I can hear you, Pinky.
Thank you.
And we've got the little live thing in the top left-hand corner of my screen, so I'm assuming we're...
Yeah. Okay.
Here he is. He's back.
He's back. Sorry, had you lost?
Back.
Had you lost the will to live
about
there?
him.
I do apologise, Pinky. You were just talking about the lack of options in Moyes' squad and the fact that he's out of contract at the end of the year. Yes, I don't know if you'd finished on that little stream of consciousness because I've just come back. So
yeah, and Graham, basically the point I'm making is we've done fine this season so far. The manager has done the best with what he's got. but he's got an awful lot of players that we need to shift. I don't know how he's going to shift them because the chairman won't want to take the financial hit.
Yeah.
They can't seem to, I don't see any white smoke coming out of the London Stadium saying the manager's signed a new deal. And I think that's about, well, what funds are going to be available to improve the squad. And all in all, I'd say Moyes is keeping his end of the bargain. Some of the players that we've got are keeping their end of the bargain. But there's 5 or 6 who I wouldn't accuse them of stealing a living, but they're not quite at the level we need them to be. And the chairman here, I don't think he really wants Moyes. I think he's looking for an excuse to have Moyes walk, and a bit like he did with Allardyce at the end. And I think the club's a bit of a mess at that top leadership level. And I think what's really going on here now is we're going to lose quite a good manager at the end of the year. Other clubs are going to look at us and go, well, look at the state of West Ham. What is really going on there? And I'm sorry to keep banging on and on about it. The Benrahma deal is the classic where the chairman has done a deal with a player's agent. Yeah. The manager clearly didn't want that player at that point in time. And the manager, because he's got 20 odd points on the board already, and we look comfortable in mid-table, is sitting there now with his arms folded. He may have been offered a new contract by the chairman, but has he been offered the funds that he knows he's going to need to strengthen the squad? And I suspect until David Sullivan says, here is X amount, I don't think David Moyes is going to sign a deal. I think he's got the chairman exactly where he wants him, rather than what usually goes on with David Sullivan, where the chairman normally has the manager where the chairman wants him. And I think this is going to get quite tasty in the next few weeks.
Okay, well, of course, we'll watch with bated breath to see what happens. The transfer window opening again in a couple of days' time, and of course, the little bits of info you hear tend to suggest that there isn't going to be an awfully huge pot for Mr. Moyes to dip into when that window does open in a couple of days' time. But definitely areas of the team that need to be addressed, as we've seen in recent weeks. Gnome, you've been listening to a couple of interviews there. Declan Rice was in first, and then we saw the Southampton coach. Is it Kitzbichler, who was up shortly after? I don't think Mr. Moyes has been up yet, though.
Not yet, no. I haven't seen him yet. Declan Rice was, although pleased with the point, he did say that, it feels a little bit like 2 lost. But it was a standard interview, tough place to come, etc., etc. But a lot of games, but then everyone's playing a lot of games. We didn't feel we did ourselves justice against Brighton, that sort of thing. So, nothing really of earth-shattering information. I'm glad to see that he was slightly disappointed not to get the win.
Yeah.
From the chap whose name I'm not even going to begin to start to pronounce, Kitzbichler or whatever his name is, he was actually very happy with the point. And saying we needed to be a bit more sharp in front of goal in the final third. I'm just watching that disallowed goal again, and
the Ings effort.
Because if they put those grid lines up, that's going to be very close, because although he's not actually over that side, Fredericks is over this side. It's all happening over there. So if you're looking at the nearest West Ham player, whoever's going down the right hand side there is looking offside. But look over there. That's not that. That's a bit close. It was basically bemoaning the fact they needed to be a little bit sharper in front of goal. Had hoped that the return of Ings might have brought that about, but I think he said something nice about West Ham in the middle of it all. All fairly turgid stuff, really. Still waiting for David Moyes, and here he is. So I'll come back to you.
There you go.
Yeah,
Perfectly
just on
timed.
that slide, Graham, somebody on
Yes,
Saints Web has helpfully put up some DIY grid lines,
Okay.
and actually proven that Saints were offside. So
Okay.
so I think we can put that one to bed. Someone's shoulder. It was the player's shoulder was just, and the vertical lines, was utter nonsense. But they're not growing.
This is what it's come to. We have the fans now producing our own homemade VAR interpretations.
Yeah.
What's the general consensus over there, Pinky, on Saints Web with regards to a point for their team?
They were petrified when Antonio came on. He was clearly the player of ours they feared the most. They pretty much to a man felt that they themselves were poor tonight, created insufficient, and overall they're happy to get a point and are feeling really they've nicked the point rather than earned the point, if you get my drift. So I think that kind of adds to the sort of feeling we've got, that whilst a point away is never bad, 3 was there for taking for us tonight, and there you go. But no real complaints from Saints Web tonight.
Okay, good stuff. While Gnome is listening to David Moyes' comments, we'll have a quick chat with Rio before we move on to that. Rio, it was a decent point. As we said earlier, any point on the road is always a decent one. But given that we failed to, win those very winnable games against the likes of Palace and Brighton, etc., that's now 1 win in 6 for David Moyes. So, we said before the game, we really do need to go out there and win that. But Everton up next, and then you've got a 10-day break. So, you're sort of looking ahead and thinking, well, if we don't win at Everton, where is, I suppose Burnley would be the answer, but to say, where is the next win going to come from? But it doesn't look very good all of a sudden, does it?
I don't know. I mean, you've got to think that no one expected us to go through that early season phase against the likes of Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, etc., City, in the position that we are already. Everyone thought we would be stone bottom, struggling beyond belief.
Yep.
But everyone's expected perceptions of how we play and results we pick up were completely flipped on the head, weren't they? No? Against the bigger sides, we flourished. Against the likes of Wolves, who European qualifiers last year, still a decent side, but their frailties in depth have been shown this season. But we destroyed them. Leicester, who until I think yesterday or maybe today was second, we went away to the Walker Stadium and destroyed them.
Yep.
It's against teams who we're expected to break down, expect to dominate and kind of play off the park, that we're struggling. I think that's just indicative of the way David Moyes sets up. He's got us playing incredibly compact and quick on the break away from home against bigger sides. At home and against teams we expected to dominate, we struggle. We've got the attacking talent at disposal, so it's really hard to pinpoint exactly where it's going wrong. But I think the safety first attitude really is. It's not counterproductive against bigger teams, is it? But when we have to put a little bit more thought, a little bit more intelligence in the way we play, a little bit more patience, we don't seem to have it. And that's the mentality we have to alter. Maybe we need almost a more in-depth squad that we can chop and change against the level of the opposition. But he's got a tactical setup. It's working for him. We're picking up the points. And let's not forget, as Pinky pointed out, his contract expires incredibly soon. His remit was to keep us up last year and stabilise the club. Mm-hmm. No one can fail to say that he hasn't done that. Along the way, he's bought incredibly well. I mean, I've got no complaints about what he's doing so far. I mean, it's not entirely pretty against the likes of Fulham, Palace, etc. But we're picking up the points. We're in a decent position, given the fact that at the start of the season, everyone was tipping us for a relegation battle, if not relegation at all.
Yeah, have we perhaps been a little bit spoilt by those early season results? Perhaps we were expecting a little bit more because of those.
Yeah, it's raised expectations, isn't it? I mean, you expect to go to these places and at times get absolutely turned over. But because we, against the odds, we picked up points, a couple of crucial wins, it raises and fuels supporter expectation and hopes.
Yeah.
Because we haven't followed that up, but we haven't done it for the last few years. We haven't gone to teams. And as I say, where we're supposed to have gone to teams and battered them, we haven't done it. We haven't done it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just respect what we have at the moment. Let's not forget how thin this squad is in terms of numbers.
Well,
let's not forget where we was this time last year. Because this time last year, we was calling for Moyes because Pellegrini had failed. The squad was in disarray. We was unfit. We were slow. We was heading for the drop. And 12 months later, we're sitting pretty in the top half of the table.
Yeah, easy to forget where we've come from. Gnome, I'm going to come to you in just a second for David Moyes' thoughts. But Pinky, I think you just wanted to come in there and make a comment on Rio's assessment.
Which other Premier League club started the season with just one striker?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, the reality is we've started with Haller as the only striker in the books. We've converted Antonio to do that job, and Antonio is making Haller look like a pub player. You know, he really is in terms of effectiveness. Yeah. And I keep coming back to it. We sold Grady Diangana, and the chairman's reinvested that money in a player our manager neither wanted or needed. Yeah, instead of actually putting the money towards a player we needed. We should have gone for a striker. No ifs or buts, because where our season's come undone, Antonio, the converted player, we've looked good in the first part of the season because Antonio was delivering week after week for us. You know, comments from ourselves along the lines of Drogba-esque performances, unplayable, all those sorts of things. And as soon as he drops out of the side because of injury, that's when we're back down to 1 win in 6. It's not a coincidence where the problem is, and it keeps coming back to the same door, and that's on the door of a massive house out in Essex, where the chairman is listening to the wrong people. He's listening to Will Salthouse when he should be listening to David Moyes. It's that bloody obvious, and I'm up to here with it now because, you know, our season is going to peter out into a mid-table mediocrity.
Yeah,
and it needn't be that way. It needn't be that way. And I'm sorry, but we're a striker short. And we all know, come the end of January, we'll still be a striker short. That's it.
It was, and this is the point that you make. Of course, it was also predictable. We you know, it's not as if we're sitting here in retrospect saying these things. These were the conversations and these were the comments we were having and making back in July and August, and even at the end of last season. You know, that necessity to strengthen in attack, and just hasn't happened. But there you go. We shall see what happens next week, as we said in the transfer window. Gnome has been waiting patiently to come in on David Moyes' thoughts. The manager has been speaking to Amazon. Not quite sure who he speaks to at Amazon, but he's been having his say. No, what did the Moyes have to say about that point tonight?
I've forgotten now. No, it's funny. Just before you went to Pinky there, you just mentioned a measure of how far we've come. It was pointed out to him that it's a year since he took over, and he was giving the players full credit for, firstly, sort of getting out from the bottom 3 where we were when he came over, to in the end stay up fairly comfortably, and to have a good start to the season that we've got. Excuse me, that we've had, the relatively good start anyway that we've had. As regards today's game, he was pleased with the clean sheet. Obviously, thought we'd won it like the rest of us did when Benrahma was clean through. He hadn't seen it again, but he said he said they tell me it was a great save. So I think he's cut Benrahma some slack on that. One of the things he said that might interest people is that just looking at the club in general, and he says, we're trying to change West Ham, and he said we'd like to do it quickly, but we're having to do it little by little. But hopefully, he said, people will begin to see how we're trying to change West Ham. Now, he didn't elaborate on that point, and
Did you perhaps interpret that as a dig at the bald gnome? The fact that he said we're having to do it little by little.
I guess possibly. I mean, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about the general ethos of the general transfer ethos of bringing in younger players, rather than sort of oh, he can do a job, we'll put him in there, even though he's in his 30s and on his last legs. Maybe he was talking about that. Maybe he's just talking about the fact that we got next to no money, and the changes he wants to make, he can't make all at once. I mean, going off tangent a little bit, but wholesale changes are not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes in, you suddenly get 7 or 8 new players, and completely disrupt the thing. He was very clear about praising the spirit in the club, and the fact that in training he said, "What a good squad, what a good bunch that he's got." But I think the general impression I got was happy with the point. Maybe slightly disappointed it wasn't 3. But as somebody pointed out, it's the first clean sheet in 7 games.
Mm.
So, and to be honest, I think you'd asked me before the game, I'd have been happy. Although they haven't been great the last 2 or 3 games. Their start of the season hasn't been bad. And especially with Ings back, I think I'd have settled for a point.
Well, you of course, both you and Rio predicted that we'd leave with a point tonight. So kudos to you two, gentlemen.
I also said that this is one of those games that you expect there to be a lot of goals, and there won't be.
Well, you did go for a 1-1, to be fair.
Yeah. So I was closest.
And well, actually, I went for 1-0, so I was closest. So
I got the
in
point
terms
right.
of goals scored,
at least I got the result right. How can you be
did.
close? You didn't even get the result right.
You did. I'm not going to enter into a row with you about this.
Now.
No, I was right. But I was just going to say, I do apologise if anyone heard my phone talking there during Gnome's view of
probably
David
more interesting
Moyes'.
than what I
But
had
for
to
some
say.
reason, Gnome, you set off my Alexa on my phone. I'm not quite sure what it was, what you said, but it triggered it anyway, and it was asking me for some direction. But anyway, there you go. A year.
Yes, indeed, we all do.
Yes, no idea. There's always someone listening to you when you least expect it. Rio, as Gnome said, it's been a year of David Moyes now. How that year's flown. I think it was Bournemouth, wasn't it, the first game?
Yeah.
We played 1-4.
4-0 win.
We thought that was it. We never looked back. What do you make of it, that last 12 months?
Well, let's put it this way. When he first joined us, he's been out of work for 18 months, hasn't he? We was the last person to even consider employing him. His managerial stock was an all-time rock bottom. He'd failed miserably in Spain. He failed miserably at Sunderland. The only reason we possibly employed him is because he was cheap, wasn't he? Yeah? He was cheap, available. No one else would touch him with a barge pole. Now, I thought it would be a complete disaster. No one wanted him. I don't know a single West Ham fan who wanted him, and particularly the second time round. No one wanted him back. But look what he's done to us, It's not the most exciting football, but when it does click, it's decent, We saw that at Wolves. We saw that at Leicester, When it does click, we're a decent side. He's building us slowly. He's made some very astute purchases. Thomas Soucek was an absolute steal.
Yeah.
Jared Bowen is the kind of player that West Ham fans were crying out for. Full of energy, full of work rate, a young player with a lot to prove. Kofeld looks a very good signing. If he's allowed to develop his side in the manner he has done already in his first 12 months, if he's given the funds to do that, we could flourish. Look what we did at Evan. I know it was a long time ago. He's shown what he can do in a shoestring budget. All right, Bill Kenwright isn't the most difficult chairman in terms of personality and attention seeking and interference, but he wasn't exactly flush with a wallet, was he? And he's not getting that here either. He's considering who his employers are, what he's been allowed to work with. He's done a fine job. I can't fault the man. As I said, at times it's not the most aesthetically pleasing, but it can be. And in incredibly difficult circumstances, I think he's doing the sterling work.
Excellent stuff. Pinky, same question to you. I mean, another thing that we've longed for really at West Ham, going back as far back as perhaps even John Lyall, 30 years ago, is a manager who can bring that sort of continuity to the squad. Who can develop a team, put his own, his own feel on the squad rather than chopping and changing every couple of years. Do you get the feeling that Moyes is that man that, assuming he gets offered a new contract, and that is, of course, a very big assumption at this point, bearing in mind, as you've pointed out rightly, he's out of contract in a few months. Do you think he's the man that can do that? And do you think the board, more importantly, see him as the sort of David Moyes that was at Everton and was allowed to do that, to build a team in his image and progress and do that over a number of years rather than the 18 to 24 months that managers have been getting for the last X amount of years at the club?
Yeah, I think David. I mean, if you take Moyes 1 and Moyes 2, I think Moyes now is more comfortable as West Ham United manager. He's more comfortable in front of a camera. The doer Scott sort of reputation that he had about, if you're not miserable enough, I'll give you another bowl of porridge to make you really miserable. He's worked hard to shed that image, and he's managed 850, 900 games, for a number of different clubs. He knows the job. Let's get away from this idea that he's some clueless halfwit who's lucky to be where he is. Yeah, he's earned the right to manage in the Premier League for year after year of doing a reasonably decent job at the clubs he's been to. He's had a couple of setbacks, but who hasn't? Who hasn't in that game? There's two kinds of football manager: them that's been fired and them that's going to be fired. That's just how the game is, and I think he's earned the right to have the respect of the players under his charge, and I think he's clearly got that. He's battled to get the coaching staff that he wanted, because let's not forget that the chairman didn't want to let Stuart Pearce back in the club. And again, he's relented on that. So I think when he's giving signals like we're trying to change it a little bit at a time, I think he's smart enough to know if he goes into David Sullivan, all guns blazing, there's only one winner. Because David Sullivan's going to say, 51%, my money, my club, my rules, out you go. Okay. I think Moyes is clever enough now to know he needs to put the chairman in a position where the chairman looks a complete and utter mug if he can't find an agreement with David Moyes and then on a new deal. And because clearly Moyes is talking about a happy squad, a happy trading environment. Yeah. Are we hearing any stories from any players now about, I can't stand it at West Ham? Yeah. Jack Wilshere, had a few words to say on the way out the door. But that's Jack Wilshere training with second division Bournemouth now. Because he, basically a manager made the correct and sensible decision. That is, you're not a player for here anymore, pal, because you're just not up to it. So I think what we're seeing from David Moyes is he's making good decisions, consistent decisions, but he is operating with a wafer-thin squad in certain areas. And I said earlier, the conversation about his contract, it's not about what he gets paid, because you know what? David Moyes ain't short of a few quid. You know, one of the things that managing for 800 odd games does for you is you rack up a few quid in the bank. So none of the guys that are managing for that duration are sat there wondering where their next million quid's coming from. So it's not about his personal deal. It's about what the chairman is going to do to allow him to develop the club in the direction that he wants. And he knows he can only do a bit at a time, but there's this central issue about who signs the players and who picks the team. To an old-fashioned British manager, they are the fundamentals. Because could you ever imagine David Gill saying to Sir Alex Ferguson, tell you what, Sir Alex, I fancy this player, I'll sign him, yeah? You know, I'll do the deal with his agent, and I expect to see him playing. And then when Fergie doesn't pick him, would Gill ever say, well, okay, well, I'm not going to buy other players because I will force you to pick my guy because he's the only option. Anyone in the managerial role knows to get someone to do something they don't want to do, all you've got to do is shut off every other option to them. And if you close every other option, eventually they'll go, well, I may as well pick that player then because it's all I've got. For Moyes tonight, in a team with 5 changes, to be strong enough to say, no, I'm not picking Said Benrahma from the start. That's a strong manager that's saying that. And without quite rubbing the chairman's nose in it, he's saying, no, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
You know, he's not good enough, to start in my team. Okay. And perhaps the chairman will gradually take on board. If he wants Moyes as manager, that's what he's going to, dare I say it, put up with. But that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And it's a massive challenge for any manager here. We saw Sam Allardyce had a very good go at trying to change David Sullivan. And in the end, the supporters turned on Allardyce and Sullivan got his way. We have seen the club's social media department for the last couple of weeks pushing Said Benrahma as a player like he was the second coming of Pele. Seriously, you'd think we had signed, I saw someone describing the other day on Twitter as a £30 million potential world beater. And I'm thinking, really? I thought we signed him from 2nd Division Brentford. Yeah. And there's been a massive onslaught, and that's coming from one person's direction, and that is the chairman's. It's all about applying pressure to David Moyes to put him in the starting lineup. And Moyes is strong enough to stand up to that.
Yeah.
I say hats off to you, David Moyes, because that's what I'd want from a manager.
Yeah.
And could you ever imagine in the old days, the Kearns family telling John Lyle, well, this is who you're going to pick on Saturday. You got short shrift. I mean, it just wouldn't happen, and it can't happen because I don't think David Sullivan knows anything more about footballers than the 4 of us sat here chatting. Seriously. And there's a battle going on there.
Yeah.
The manager has got to win for the sake of our football club, because if we lose someone of Moyes' capabilities, where do we go? Who's next up? We've seen Pellegrini come in, blow a load of money, and we're now stuck with players we can't shift. He's been replaced by a manager who's actually spent wisely, but is having to sing for his supper. This doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. So for me, I'm happy with what Moyes is doing. We can all debate, does he start enough positively and all the rest of it? Okay. But the first thing he's got to do is seize control of who decides which players come in and out of the club. Is it him as the football professional or the chairman?
Okay.
And that for me is the fundamental question.
Okay. I was going to ask you there, Pinky, if you felt that lineup tonight was potentially a message to David Sullivan and the board, but I think you've answered that question anyway there.
Yeah, in part because, if you make 5 changes, and you still won't give the chairman signing a start, sent your message, okay?
Yeah.
And you've brought him on just to show a degree of fairness. There you go, you've got 30 minutes. the player had the one gilt-edged opportunity in the game.
Yeah.
He didn't take it. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's your answer, Mr. Chairman. And there'll be people watching this now going, bloody hell, you're being a bit harsh. You know,
I think they may already be.
You know, he's only had half an hour. But do you know what? Yeah. When Jeff Hurst was banging an hat-tricks in World Cup finals,
Yeah.
one game, one day for immortality. What side Ben Rama? Would you say he'd be able to do that? And that's the level, that's the standard. The top draw, when they get that one chance, they take it.
Yes, definitely the best chance. Well, not just for West Ham, but the best chance for anyone in the game. That opportunity that fell to side Ben Rama. But of course, as we did say, massive credit to McCarthy in the Southampton goal. It was, you know, and in fairness to Ben Rama, I suppose he didn't have an awful lot to aim at. It was something he had to take on the spur of the moment. But yeah, you know, you do expect, I suppose, a forward player to find the net from that range. But anyway, thank you, Pinky, for your assessment there. Gnome, finally, on this subject, and we'll wrap it up shortly after this. But 12 months of the boss, the Dow Scott, as he was previously referred to, as Pinky pointed out. Now, you know, is he the Messiah, or is he just a very naughty boy?
If someone wants to look it up somewhere, there's probably footage of me being interviewed by ITV, the local London news, when he first arrived, and me expressing dismay, partly at his arrival, and partly because they were interviewing me outside on a bloody freezing December afternoon. So I wasn't happy when he arrived. Hands up and all that. What I would say is, having been in his company a fair bit from time to time over the years, you know, I've done all the press conferences and things like that. I would back him. I would praise him for his honesty and his integrity. He seems like a genuinely honest person. Not for him, if we played badly, to come out and say, well, that was a 0-0 draw, but here, look at my laptop. Here's the stats that prove we were actually watching the 1970 World Cup final. You know, and I've warmed to him. And you know, I'd still like to see a little bit more in the way of an attacking flair, but it's always a balancing act. And I get the impression that, and we're going to compare managers. So, I mean, Pellegrini, forget that. But if we're going to compare him with, say, Allardyce, Moyes will set up to make sure that we start off. And he was hinting as such in the interview about, you know, if you're keeping clean sheets, you're going to get points. But he will also have somebody out there who will be trying to win him a game as well. He'll be happy with the point, quite rightly so, because it's away at Southampton. But he also is disappointed that it wasn't 3. Whereas Allardyce would be beaming over the 0-0 draw as if it were 3, because that's what he wanted, and anything else would be a bonus. So he's got a little bit more attacking sensibility than perhaps he's ever given credit for. Now, I'll put my hands up. In the past, I've probably been as guilty of thinking that as anyone. Pinky said he's got the poison chalice of dealing with our owners. Well, and I always think, well, good luck to him with that, because you never quite know what you're up against with that lot. And I did like his comment about, we're trying to change West Ham here. Now, you can interpret that as a dig at the chairman. You can interpret that as just a general step change in the culture.
What did you think he meant by that? What exactly is it you think he's trying to change, or did he infer that he was attempting to change?
difficult to say. I mean, because it kind of came out of a little bit of it lacked a bit of context.
Okay.
But I mean, from what I took of it, when he said, maybe not as quickly as we'd like, although it might not come quickly, but hopefully people can see where things are changing. I mean, we're not going into every game now thinking that we're definitely going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
We were slightly perhaps pessimistic at the start of this one because Southampton have probably had a slightly better start to the season. We didn't really take into account the fact that the last few games they haven't done much. But, we're no longer going into every game thinking, God, I hope we can get something out of this. And, which... you started looking forward to games a bit more.
Yeah.
As much as you can when you can't go to the damn things. But
it's actually a really Dan, but it's a really good point, isn't it? I mean, since we've been doing these broadcasts, when did we start? At the end of was it July? I think it was at the end of July we started. They've been great fun. There's few games that I can think of that we've sat here and we've been scathing of the team and Moyes, is there? We, on the whole, without wishing to generalise, it's been pretty entertaining stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not been bad at all. I mean, Newcastle is the one game that is immediately leaping to mind this season where it just didn't work. And, what happened? Things got changed around. We didn't beat Arsenal, but we should have done, perhaps. And, something had to be done. He did it. He wasn't saying, "Well, okay, maybe it'll work next week" and all that. He's been proactive in that respect. Okay. Sometimes, sometimes the substitutions have been a bit delayed or a bit late. Even that, I think he's been a little bit more proactive in that. I mean, to the extent that he's sneaking on players without us noticing now. But no, as I say, I've wanted. I'm pleased with what he's done.
Yeah,
which I think is despite the owners rather than because of.
Okay.
We've got whatever shirt buttons we can find down the back of the sofa to spend this January if the noises coming out from that general direction are to be believed. So it's it's as I say, Shrewsbury, but he's working marvels considering what we've got. He did say today, and people mentioning 5 changes and Benrahma's not amongst them. He did say that the majority of changes he felt were forced upon him by the fact that we've got we had 24 hours turnaround in between games, and he was. I think sometimes we can be a bit guilty of reading political message into things which may or may not be there.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think Benrahma's been playing well enough to merit a start. Now, that's so I wouldn't have picked him. That would have nothing to do with what I thought of the chairman. It's I wouldn't pick him at the moment to start. But he did say that this was the first match that he's felt able to do that, because he was asked about squad depth. And when you look at it, now that Antonio's back in contention, and boy, wasn't he a breath of fresh air this afternoon or this evening. Now that Antonio's back in contention, the only main sort of worry we've got is Arthur, who again was instrumental in the way we were playing.
Shame that came at a real bad time, didn't it? That injury.
Since both him and Antonio were out, he's been, as he put it, trying to get that blend right. So, and because there've been various knocks here and there, I don't know where Balbuena was today, for example. Maybe he was just given the afternoon or the evening off. But there've been lots. I mean, apart from those couple of serious injuries, there've been niggly little knocks here and there. And just when Lanzini looked like he might be sort of worth a start, he picked up another little strain that kept him out, and he's had to start again. And so he did say today's the first day that he's actually felt that he's had a best of the squad as he can and muster. Arthur, obviously, and he mentioned Arthur by name, saying a big loss to the way we play. So
yeah, but overall, you're you know, as you say, you're pleased. I think it's fair to say with what you've seen from the last 12 months.
Not displeased.
Yeah,
well,
that's
no,
always a good sign.
It's not. I'm pleased with the start we got. I mean, let's face it. There's not one of us here wouldn't have bit your hand off to say, you know, it's Christmas, come up to New Year, last game of the year. You'll be in 10th place, and you'll be 3 points behind Man City, 3 points behind Tottenham, and 3 points behind Chelsea. 3 points. Well, Villa. If you said 3 points behind Villa, you might have had one of those wavy lines around the mouth. But
okay. So it seems that we're all in agreement anyway. Everyone's reasonably happy.
It's healthy that we're disappointed that we're not actually better
absolutely.
off.
Oh,
and
indeed.
And it's all very well having that expectation. You know, you'll be saying, "Oh, yeah, we should be higher up. We should be higher up." It's all very well having that expectation where you've got nothing to back it up. But from what we've seen from time to time this season, it is a glimpse of what this squad can be capable of.
Yes, yeah.
And it needs a bit more depth, a bit added to it here and there. Get that blend right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm not unhappy.
Good stuff. Good stuff. The future is bright, as they say. The future is claret and blue. Rio, I'll just quickly before we finish on the first year of David Moyes, I think one person we haven't mentioned tonight that I get the feeling has made a huge difference behind the scenes, and you know, you often see him when the substitutions are being made. It's always this gentleman who's having the chats and issuing the instructions. Kevin Nolan. Would you agree that you feel he's been instrumental in you know, making the team more resilient and, you know, the squad a much better force in the Premier League?
Absolutely. I thought when Nolan was a player here, he had all those attributes that you just knew that he would step into a coaching role somewhere at some time.
Yeah.
He had a bit of a turbulent time in Notts County. I think he was unjustly dismissed there. I mean, look at them there. They've been an absolute car crash for the last few years.
Yeah, they were doing okay, yeah. Since
he's come here, he looks like he's the conduit between the players and management.
Mm.
He looks like he can bring a fresh air. He relates to the players well. He works the iPad better than I do, which is a really good sign. He just looks, I'm thinking the right words, but he just looks like a natural born coach, doesn't he? You know?
Yeah. And also perhaps the right age being, you know, not as old as Moyes, but not as young as the players, and with the experience of both.
He's still obviously got links to a couple of the playing staff, and I think that's a real big positive, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the likes of Noble respect him. They know what he did for the club the first time around when he was the captain. I think Noble learned a lot from him.
Yeah. In
terms of captaincy and the way to conduct yourself around fellow professionals.
Yeah, Cresswell would have played with him too, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those two key players who, despite the fact they get a bit stick now, they're aging themselves.
Yeah.
They know what he can bring to a setup in terms of a club.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, he was a kind of a natural appointment, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's another thing that you've got to credit David Moyes for, you know?
Yeah.
His coaching setup. Nevin is a good coach, well respected in the game.
Yep.
Stuart Pearce, not a great manager, but as a coach, incredibly well respected.
Yeah.
Nolan, again, well talked about in the game because of his captaincy skills as a player, and he's bringing that to the fore in a coaching manner. So he's done incredibly well with his coaching setup, and I think that's a key part of our revival.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Pinky obviously gave credit to Piercy as well earlier, but it certainly seems that, you know, that's where it starts with Moyes, doesn't it? It's developing that team. Irving as well, of course, a man with great experience and a man who's managed at the highest level himself as well. So plenty of experience. I mean, you've got three. Well, in fact, you've got all four of those guys have managed clubs at some level. So huge experience, and I mean, I totally agree. I think it's certainly paying dividends now. But well, that's just about it for tonight. We're going to leave it there, I think, because it seems a good place to end. A year of David Moyes, West Ham, when he joined the club in dire straits, struggling at the foot of the Premier League, did the job he was asked to do, kept the club up, and here we are, 12 months later in the top half of the table. Good stuff, and some good young players coming, as Pinky mentioned. The likes of Souček and Bowen, players like that who great for the future of the club as well. Couple of points before we do go. Just wanted to touch on the match stats. Finally, Gnome did refer to them during the roundup there. They flashed on the TV, but if you hadn't been watching the TV, you wouldn't have seen them. So possession-wise, Southampton 63% to West Ham 37%. 8 shots for Southampton, 3 on target, 9 for West Ham, 3 on target. The XG stat, which is quite an important one. Interestingly, Southampton's XG only 0.67, at West Ham 1.07. I suggest that much of that was probably due to that Ben Rama chance right at the death there. But a decent point really for West Ham. Next game up is Everton. So very, very quickly, gentlemen. What are you expecting from West Ham, and do you see us getting anything, Pinky?
I think we could. I think we could get a point. I think they're the form team at the minute. They're all guns blazing. Calvert-Lewin is doing the business for them. Which shows the benefit of a goal scorer. But if we're in a position to have Antonio starting, that makes us stronger straight away. So if we can get our best 11 on the pitch, I think we can get a point. And I just want to make one other small point, if I may, on a year under Moyes. 16 matches last season, we were 30 points behind Liverpool. Okay. Currently, we're 9 points behind them, albeit they've got a game in hand, but we've narrowed the gap massively with the runaway, champions from last season. And if people can't see that as progress, bearing in mind the manager has spent relatively little, then I don't know what they really think progress is. So he's done well. I think the big challenge, Everton, he gets his first 11 on the field. And it isn't going to be because we won't have Arthur there, but get 10 of the 11 out there, you've got a fighting chance. So I'm going to go for a point against Everton. Okay,
good stuff. Thank you, Pinky. Gnome, how do you see that one going? Do you think, we can take a point, or even, who knows, even win it up there? I mean, last time we went to Goodison Park was earlier in the season. Of course, we played there in the Carabao Cup, and it wasn't our first team. It wasn't really a good barometer to judge West Ham by, but beaten 4-1. You're presumably hoping we can do better this time around.
Yeah, a lot more optimistic, having seen just how well we played with Antonio and how much of a difference he made. Assume he hasn't done anything nasty and this evening, and I don't know if they fly or get a train or coach or whatever they do. Doesn't get himself in an uncomfortable position on the way back tonight, and he's fit. I've got every. We may not win, but I've got every thoughts of as Pinky said. I think a draw's not out of the question, nor should it be. That's to say those last few minutes when he came on, it really was a breath of fresh air. Yeah. And it just shows the folly of that half he played a few weeks back. I can't remember the game now, where he came on for that first half. And clearly wasn't up and ready for it. And it's another 4, 5, 6 weeks however for him to get back. So they'll need to nurture him, but I think so. Yeah,
fairly confident. Good stuff. Rio, finally, Michail Antonio hopefully back firing on all cylinders, ready to go at the Toffees. Can we make it sticky for them up there?
I'm a little bit more apprehensive because 3 games in 6 days isn't, with a wafer thin squad, isn't the best preparation, is it? But you know, we've got a 10-day break afterwards. If we can tell our side one last big effort, then you've got a big rest. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. I've got a lot of games apprehensive before this season and been pleasantly surprised by getting points here and there, the odd win. So why not? Why can't we do it?
Excellent. So there you go. Everyone ending the year. What a difference! What a difference 12 months has made. You know, looking to go to a team who are doing really well in the Premier League, up in the top 3 at the moment, and here we are. You know, confident that we can go there and take something off them. So long may it continue. It's been a long year for David Moyes. It's been a long year for all of us. This time last year, we'd never done one of these broadcasts, but here we are sort of 6-7 months later, and feels like we've been doing them forever. But just leaves me to say, well, yeah, it's. I just want to say thank you, really, to everybody who's joined us on these streams over the course of the last few months. You know, it's been great fun doing them with the guys, and really, really enjoyable. And it's been great having your comments and you know, feeding back on that, and you letting us know what you think of the shows and of the matches as they go on. And as I say, it's been great fun, and we really do thank you for sticking with us over the last few months. And the way it's going, we could be here for many, many more months or even years before any of us have the opportunity to get back to the Olympic Stadium and watch games for real. Remember that. Could be a thing of the past. So as I always say, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. Where is it? It's over there somewhere. There's a subscribe button you can hit there where that enables you to be notified of every broadcast we do, all our content that we put up. We're planning loads of stuff for next year. We're hoping to bring you a lot more on KUMB TV on our YouTube channel. As for tonight, it's ended Southampton 0, West Ham United 0. Another point on the road for the Hammers. And we end the year in the top half of the table. And who would have predicted that, given where we were 12 months ago? It's Everton, New Year's Day. Until then, it just leaves me to wish all of you a very, very happy New Year. I'm sure you won't be out doing much, but enjoy it as best you can. And we'll see you all here again in another 48 hours or so. Until then, come on, you Irons.